Today I'd like to reflect on the figure of a woman who speaks to us of hope lived in tears. Now I know that sounds strange. Hope lived in tears. And the woman is Rachel. She is the wife of Jacob and the mother of Joseph and Benjamin. She who, as the book of Genesis tells us, dies giving birth to her second-born son, Benjamin. The prophet Jeremiah refers to Rachel in addressing the Israelites who are now in exile, and he does so in order to comfort them with words full of emotion and poetry. That is, he takes up Rachel's cry, but he gives hope. Thus says the Lord, a voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted for her children because they are no more. In these verses, Jeremiah presents a woman of her people, the great matriarch of her tribe, in the reality of pain and weeping. Rachel, who in Genesis had died in childbirth and had accepted death so that her son might live, now instead is represented by the prophet Jeremiah as being alive in Ramah, where the exiles are gathered, weeps for her children who, in a certain sense, died by going into exile, children who, as she herself says, are no more and have disappeared forever. And that is why Rachel would not be consoled. This refusal expresses the depth of her pain and the bitterness of her weeping. In facing the tragedy of the loss of her children, a mother cannot accept consoling words or gestures, which are really always inadequate and unable to soothe the pain of a wound that cannot and will not be healed. It's a pain that's proportioned to love, and every mother knows this. And there are so many mothers, even today, who weep, who do not resign themselves to the loss of a child, who are inconsolable before a death that is impossible to accept. Rachel embodies the pain of all the mothers of the world in every age and the tears of every human being who weeps over an irreparable loss. The refusal of Rachel, who would not be consoled, also teaches us how much sensitivity is required of us in the face of another person's pain. In order to speak about pain to someone in despair, we need to share their desperation. In order to dry a tear on the face of someone who's suffering, we need to join our weeping to theirs. Only in this way can our words truly be capable of giving a little hope. And if I cannot say a word in this way, with weeping, with pain, then believe it or not, silence is better. A caress, a gesture, but no words. God, in his gentleness and love, responds to Rachel's cry with true words. These aren't fake words, pious words. The text from Jeremiah, in fact, continues in this way. Thus says the Lord, keep your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded, says the Lord, and they shall come back from the land of the enemy. There is hope for your future, says the Lord, and your children shall come back to their own country. Precisely because of the weeping of a mother is there still hope for her children who shall return to life. This woman, who had accepted death at the moment of childbirth so that her son might live, through her weeping is now the principle of new life for her exiled people, her imprisoned children who are far from their homeland. The Lord responds to the pain and bitter weeping of Rachel with a promise that can now be for her a reason for true consolation. The people she weeps for will be able to return from exile and freely live their relationship with God in faith. So, tears have borne hope. Now, this isn't easy to understand, but it's true. So many times in our lives, tears sow hope. They are seeds of hope. As we realize, this text from Jeremiah is also taken up in Matthew's Gospel, and it's applied to the massacre of the innocents, which we celebrate right after Christmas. And this story of Matthew places us before the tragedy of the murder of defenseless human beings, little children, and the horror of power that despises and eliminates life. These children of Bethlehem died because of Jesus. And he, the innocent lamb, Jesus, would then die in turn for all of us. The Son of God entered into the suffering of the world, and we must not forget this. You know, when someone addresses me and asks me a difficult question, for example, "Please, Father, tell me, why do children suffer?" I truly do not know how to respond. I only say, look at Jesus crucified. God has given us his Son. He has suffered. And perhaps there you will find an answer. Only looking to the love of God who gave us his Son, who offers his life for us, can point us to a path of consolation. And that is why we say that the Son of God entered into the suffering of men. He shared and accepted death. His word is definitely a word of consolation because it is born of tears. On the cross, it is the dying Son who gives a new fruitfulness to his mother by entrusting the disciple to her and making her the mother of believers. So in the end, death is conquered, and thus is the prophecy of Jeremiah fulfilled. Mary's tears, like those of Rachel, have borne hope and new life.